Coming up on the Mobile Content Creators Show.
From a practical standpoint, I think when you're doing video work in general, you're dealing with very, very large files. And right now, managing those files on an iPhone is definitely, I would say, harder than managing those files on an Android.
So today's topic relates to Android devices. If you're shooting and editing video, has Android caught up and perhaps even overtaken Apple?
Welcome to the Mobile Content Creators Show. If you're a mobile journalist, marketer, or creative who makes content on a mobile device or for mobile audiences, you're in the right place. Keeping you up to date with the fast-moving world of mobile, here's your host and mobile video specialist, Mark Egan.
So I'm joined today from Seoul in Korea by Matthew Feinberg, who's the product lead of Kinemaster. And if you don't know about Kinemaster, then let me illuminate you. We talk a lot about editing video on Apple devices, iOS devices, but then sometimes people don't realize what's possible on Android phones. And I don't think it would be too controversial to say by a big margin, Kinemaster is the best video editing app on Android right now. So Matthew, thank you for joining me at, I think it's 6 p.m. your time over there.
Yes, thank you very much for having me on your show, and very pleasure to join.
Well, first of all, just tell me a bit about yourself. What's your background? Have you always been in sort of engineering, and where did you come to this point?
Well, my background, I guess you could say I'm sort of a jack of all trades. I've been in engineering, in programming mostly, but have dabbled a bit in video production as well. And at the moment, I am actually running the business unit here that is responsible for Kinemaster.
Okay, so if you were, I always put myself in the shoes of people who are developing these apps, and for the first decision that I would need to make is, do we go down iOS, do we go down Android, or do we do both? Now, we always hear about how there are so many different types of devices. Why would you be so crazy enough to make life difficult for yourself and create a video editing app on Android?
You know, if I could go back in time a few years and ask myself the same question, I probably would. Definitely, Android is a tougher platform when it comes to doing specifically this type of application, I think. At the time that we were starting this project, it was sort of a side project, and we looked at iMovie was already there on iOS, and we thought, well, why do we need another editor on iOS? We didn't have very many features back then, and we said, well, maybe we can do the same thing on Android. It doesn't look that hard. Boy, were we wrong. It was quite a challenge, but it's been quite an adventure getting here. But we have made it work, and I'm very proud to say that it works on most Android devices now.
And when people come to sort of download Kinemaster, I know you have the free trial, but how do they go about figuring out whether this will work on their particular phone?
So at the moment, the best way to figure that out is to check our website. If it's available in Google Play, it will work on your phone. In almost all cases, there are a few cases where we can't filter that on Google Play, and we try to stay on top of that manually, removing those. But for the most part, if it shows up in Google Play, it will work on your device. But if you want to know in advance, or if you're planning to buy a device, then the best thing to do is to check the kinemaster.com website. And if you click the link at the top that says Learn, there's a section there that tells what devices are available. At the moment, because there are a lot of Android devices, so clearly we're not going to list every single device that supports or doesn't support Kinemaster. What matters is the chipset, the system on a chip, the SoC that's in the device. Certain devices are going to have better performance in Kinemaster. So at the moment, that would be the Qualcomm Snapdragon 800 series, anything starting with an 8 in the Snapdragon series of processors. Samsung's Exynos 7 and 8 processors, Kirin 930 and 950, and also now the Snapdragon 615 and higher, anything in the 600 series above 15. So those are going to give you the best performance. You're going to have video layers, support, chroma key, all those great features on those devices. We do support a large range of other ones as well, but you won't find video layers on them yet. We're working on that.
And I mean, you started to mention some of the functionality, which we'll talk about more in a moment.
Sure.
But
Okay.
when you're actually beginning to put together an app like this, what's the process? Do you sit there and draw out an interface and think, oh, this was what it would look like? Do you go and ask a bunch of video professionals, what would you like in video? Or do you go and look at other, how do you sit in a room with loads of Post-it notes and think,
Right.
oh, we could do that. Oh, that seems a bit hard. How do you go about it?
Well, the Post-it notes are definitely part of the process, for sure. Actually, all of the things you mentioned are steps that we go through. Although in the very early stages, when we get started on something like Kinemaster, I'll talk specifically about our experience in Kinemaster. We didn't know if we were going to be targeting video professionals in the beginning or not, because if you look at, for example, iMovie, they kind of have a broad target. There's professional users, but you also see some quite silly themes, and they have trailers and so on that probably professionals are not going to use. So at that time when we were getting started, we actually weren't sure. So the very first version of Kinemaster, probably nobody has ever seen. It was not released on Google Play, and I hope nobody ever sees it. It was
now everyone's going to try and dig it out, aren't they?
Yes. It's not there. I've Googled it already to make sure before I mentioned it. So what we do basically is that we make a first version. I wouldn't even call it a prototype, it's sort of a proof of concept. And in that very first version, we were not even thinking about graphics or anything else. Actually, the play button was just a letter I typed on the keyboard, basically, to label the buttons. So we start from that. And then just to say, is this possible? Can we do this technically? And then the next step after that is we actually end up throwing out most of that first stage. The next step after that is to actually design the user experience, and that is done usually first on paper, and then we'll put a wireframe, what's called a wireframe for that together on the computer. And then we do a lot of brainstorming from that. We get feedback from that. We adjust that user experience wireframe. And then that then goes to the graphic designers to build the graphics and so on and so forth. But it's a very detailed sort of design from that. At that point, we also start going to potential users and getting feedback from them. So we have I guess you could call it a focus groups. And we actually observe how people use it. So when we decide where we're going to put something on the screen, it's not just a question of what's going to look nice, because that's easy. Well, relatively easy if you have good designers, which I like to think we do. What's hardest is you put it there and it makes sense to you, but when a user actually tries to use it, does it make sense to them? Can they find it? And so when you look at somebody, actually observe somebody using it for the first time, and you look at where their finger is going on the screen, and are they trying things that don't do anything? Are they hunting around? From that, you can learn a lot. So that's really one of the big challenges, to find fresh people to try it out for you when you have a change.
No, I mean, talking about the some of the functions you put in, and we'll get into what it can do. I think those who have only edited on iPhones and iPads, sometimes they've looked at some of the Android editing apps and they're very, very basic. What your one does very, very well is things like video layers. If you're going to do anything beyond the very basic, you're going to need to have at least an upper video track. Some of your audio mixing. So give us a little run through. What's the pro side of what your editing app can do?
Sure. So there are several features that I think one would consider important for a professional user, a pro user. One is basically having precise control, being able to edit with precision, and that's something that has improved especially in recent versions of Kinemaster. But for that, we want you to be able to cut or trim the video at a particular frame and be sure that frame is actually where the edit is going to happen. I think that kind of precision is very important. And if you look at a lot of other simple editing applications that are available on Android, they don't cut with that precision. They fake it. It might be plus or minus a second, which is not very good.
Especially not for interviews.
Yeah. Yes. So, well, unless I talk very slowly. So I think that's one item that I think is important. The other thing that I think is very important for a professional user is instant preview. When you make an edit on a desktop editing application, there's a sort of a pre-rendering process. They render the preview first. And on a desktop computer, that happens so fast that usually that it doesn't matter. You can make an edit, and it takes a fraction of a second to prepare that pre-render, that preview, and then you can see what you did and adjust it. But when you're on a mobile device, if it takes several seconds to pre-render that change, it makes it very hard if you're trying to time and edit precisely. You can't just make a small adjustment and try it out right away. So in Kinemaster, what we've tried to do is to provide this instant preview experience. No matter what the edit is that you've made, you can preview that immediately without having to wait for any pre-rendering process. And I think that's very important if you're doing professional work, to be able to instantly see what the results of your edit are. And then the final thing, yeah, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, and obviously the sound part of the editing as well is really impressive.
Yes, so that's part of what I would consider the fine control. Not really just trimming, but also being able to adjust the volume level at any point within a clip. When you add a layer, being able to adjust the layer's position at various points in time to animate it, I think is also important, especially if you want to conceal something in a video. Especially for journalists, I think that's an important feature. If you need to hide the license plate number in a car that was in the scene, or somebody who you're interviewing wants to remain anonymous, that can be a key feature. But the other thing is layers, and that's something that unfortunately we don't support video layers on all devices yet. We're trying to expand that as quickly as possible. Video layers are very, very really push the limits of what the mobile processors are capable of. But we are always looking for ways around that and ways to squeeze a little bit of extra performance out so we can get another video layer in. But I think when it comes to journalists or anyone who's doing an interview, for example, that video layer is a critical component, because you can use that as a B-roll. And for anyone who doesn't, it turns out that some of our users don't know what that is. Just in case, that basically means if you have to make a cut in the middle of the interview, for example, and you want to hide that cut. This is one of the big differences that I think you see between some amateur videos on YouTube and something that's professional that you see on broadcast television, is you don't see jump cuts. Where you see the person jitter because they removed a few seconds of the video. So with a video layer, you can cover that up with a B-roll, some alternate footage, while you still hear the original audio, and that makes a huge difference, I think, in whether the video, the final product seems professional quality production or not.
And the other function in one of your recent updates, which I was quite amazed by, was the chroma key, the green screen. You could video something in front of a green screen, and within the app on the phone, you could be chroma keying in a background. Now, what kind of uses do you think, what kind of people do you think would find that useful?
Well, I think there's a variety of people who can find that useful. But in one sense, we use that here. We're actually preparing a series of videos explaining various Kinemaster features and how to use them, and that's very useful for us, because it allows us to appear in the video, but also show the phone screen at the same time. And if you just were to put the two sort of next to each other, you can't control the layer. You can't control whether person who's appearing in the video is in front or in back of that. So that's one use that we have. We have a green screen room here that we use. But there are also a lot of portable green screens that are available. And if you're a journalist, for example, in the field, there's no reason you couldn't set up, a portable green screen and do that from the field as well.
Now, one of the reasons, if I understand this correctly, that you keep adding all these new features, it relates to the model of subscription. So lots of people, and I always find this really strange, that when it comes to apps, if they were buying a desktop video editing software, they would expect to spend $50, $100, $200, $300. Fine, that's fine. You charge like $4 for an app, and they think they're outraged. How could people do this to me? You've moved to a subscription model. So if I understand it, you can get the fully functioning Kinemaster app with the watermark and maybe some limitations on exporting to try it out. But to use the full functionality, you need to pay a subscription. Now, what's the reasoning behind that?
All right. So actually, since Kinemaster 3.3, there have been no limitations on the free version. We just removed those. So the only difference is the watermark, as you say. So basically, the reason we went for a subscription model is for sustainability. With the Android platform, there are a huge number of devices being released every month. The sheer number of Android devices that exist on the market is staggering. We have a huge number here just for testing, and I think we have over 1,000 devices here at the moment for testing. But even that is just a tiny fraction of the devices that are available on the market, and that has its pros and its cons. On the plus side, it means that the users have a huge amount of choice when it comes to picking the exact device that's right for them. And especially when you're talking about doing mobile journalism or something where you're recording video, producing video in the field, these can be really fantastic options to have. On the downside, it does make it harder to build applications that work across all of them. And Google has really done, I think, a fantastic job at making it possible to build applications, especially from a UI, a user interface and user experience point of view, that can adapt sort of automatically to different form factors and different devices. But when it comes to what we're doing with Kinemaster, it really goes to another level. And that is because in order to provide real-time preview, we have to use the hardware video encoder and video decoder. They're actually part of the chip in the phone to encode and decode the video. And those really, the characteristics of those vary tremendously between devices. So the result is that in order to do video editing, playback is really no problem, but to do video editing at this level, every time a new device comes on the market, we have extra work to do on it. Not for every device, but for new categories of devices, for new chips that come out, new chipsets that are released. And what happens if you're a user and you buy the application? Maybe you have a certain phone at that time when you buy the application, and then 2 years later, you're probably going to upgrade the phone because a lot of the service provider, the carriers, they'll offer you a free upgrade after a couple of years. So who's not going to do that? And that means you're on a new phone, and that means there's more work for us to do to support that new phone. But if you've only paid $10 or $15 one time to use the application, how do we support that extra work that we have to do? So in order to be sustainable, in order to keep supporting all the new upgrades that are coming on the market, we've essentially been forced into the subscription model. So since we're in a subscription model anyway, since we have to do this in order to support these new devices that are coming out, at the same time, we're, of course, very thankful to our fantastic user community and to our subscribers, and we want to continue to add professional quality features to Kinemaster. If you're paying money to support new devices, you should also at least be getting some new features along the way. But I think that's not the only thing. We also have a vision for Kinemaster of being able to do a significant amount of what you would normally find only on a desktop editing solution actually on the device. And so one of the things that we were demoing recently at MojoCon actually is the new features. So the blur and the mosaic features, which are actually effect layers. It's a new kind of layer that actually performs a filter or effect on whatever is behind it. And that is going to be coming later this year to Kinemaster. So those type of features are something that we think really add to what you can do with the application. So that's our goal.
Yeah,
and that's why
that makes perfect sense. Now, I mean, you talked about the fragmentation, all the different devices. Is that getting better? Is there? I mean, are we moving to a situation where that goes away?
That's a very tough question. I would say both yes and no. For a certain category of applications, the fragmentation is getting better. But there is always going to be sort of the bleeding edge, the newest features, the newest hardware that. So Google has something that they call the Compatibility Test Suite, or CTS. And this is a series of standard tests that are run to certify that a given device is compatible with Android. And in that test suite, obviously there are certain things you can't put in there because they're really, really new and they're just coming out on certain devices. And Android itself doesn't even have support for them, and they've actually had to customize Android to support that. Which is possible because it's open source. And this is one of the great things about Android, is that if a device manufacturer has some radical new idea and they want to try that out, they can. They're not limited by what Google has or has not decided to put in Android. But that does mean that those very new features, whatever those new features are that are pushing the envelope, are always going to be somewhat non-standard across devices. So when you look at things like, for example, mobile games, for mobile games, that's quite standard now. For productivity apps that are just mostly UI or user interface based, that's quite standard. And so supporting those across platform is getting much easier now. Google has done some really fantastic work on that. But when it comes to things like video playback, great across platform. But for video editing, where you have to encode, maybe we're decoding 2 video streams and encoding a third one all at the same time, that's something that is just still very non-standard. And when it comes to video, when it comes to cameras, when it comes to especially pushing the limit on video, 4K video or 60 or frames per second or higher video, these are areas where there really is a lot of inconsistency. So that's an area that I don't know whether that's going to get better or not. We hope it will. Obviously, we hope it will.
But let me put you on the spot for a second then.
Sure.
We talked about MojoCon, the Mobile Journalism Conference, and you probably met lots of people shooting on different devices. If you're a mobile journalist and you had the option of an iPhone 6S or something, or one of the latest Samsungs, and obviously the suite of editing available on iPhone, and obviously they would choose nothing other than Kinemaster on Android. How right. would you say to that person making that decision that it's equal, that they'll be better off perhaps going down the Android route? What would your feelings be if somebody came to you and said, right, I could go this route or this route, what should I do?
Oh, that is a not a simple question, and not merely because I'd like to say go with Android and pick Kinemaster. I think if you want a really honest answer, it's going to depend on what you're using it for and what you're doing with it. There are some great editing apps on Android. iMovie is pretty good. They don't have chroma key, and you can't put the text wherever you want it, but it's pretty good. They do have video layers. It really depends. From a technical standpoint, the iPhone hardware is fantastic. And the iPhone camera is fantastic. From a practical standpoint, I think when you're doing video work in general, you're dealing with very, very large files. And right now, managing those files on an iPhone is definitely, I would say, harder than managing those files on an Android. You need to essentially move them back and forth between different applications and so on. On Android, you essentially have the more open storage system, and when you're dealing with very large files, that can be a benefit. You have the ability to use SD cards on some devices, and that can be a benefit as well when you're dealing with large files. In addition, I think on the Android side, for some of the some phones, there are some distinct advantages. So, for example, in Kinemaster, you have the handwriting layer. You can actually draw directly on the video, and that's not for everybody. I think depends on your use case. If you're doing sports commentary, that could be nice to circle things in the that are happening, and you do a freeze frame and circle something. In that case, having a stylus is nice, and Apple only has that on their iPad Pro at the moment. So on Android, you have the option of phones that have the stylus support, like the Galaxy Note, for example. You also have, for example, the Galaxy S7, which is the Samsung's newest at the moment device. That has some really fantastic image stabilization right in the camcorder on that device. So if you want that image stabilization, you want to keep some decent quality, and you don't want a mechanical image stabilizer solution, which sometimes can be unwieldy, that's a good choice. So I think it really comes down to what you're doing, what your use case is. iPhone hardware is fantastic, but you do have some flexibility on Android that you don't have on iPhone.
I think that was a very good answer, that, because not only did you make the points, but you very, very gently put in a few digs at some of the Apple inadequacies, very politely. And would you ever consider making a Kinemaster version for iOS?
We are actively looking into that. In fact, you may have heard at MojoCon that we have something in the works. I can't officially give you any release date on it, but we are working on something actively right now.
Okay, well that'll be very interesting to hear. And where are we going with this? Because when I run training courses, I always get people to edit on the phone, even if because of their workflow they may in future be putting it onto a computer and using the editing they always use, because at least you know what it's capable of and what it's not capable of. But increasingly, people are really blown away by how far they can get actually on the device. So where, what's coming up? Where 2, 3, 4 years time? Where do you see all this?
Are you talking about Kinemaster specifically, or video editing and mobile in general? Both. Okay. I think mobile processors, mobile devices are getting more and more powerful. And one of the sort of interesting differences that you see on the mobile device is you have this sort of system on a chip approach, which is a little bit different than what you see on a desktop sort of environment, where you essentially have the video decoder in the hardware right on the chip, and you have a sort of some DSP, or digital signal processing, dedicated circuitry right on the hardware. And what this means is that it actually means that as we move forward into the future, and I think as the mobile chip manufacturers start to realize that there are some serious professional use cases here, that there's going to be a lot that you're going to be able to do better on mobile. There's going to be things you can do better on PC. Of course, the advantage on a PC is you have a very fast general purpose processor. But having these sort of dedicated components on a mobile device means that you can do that portably, with less power consumption, and actually faster in some cases than you could do because it's dedicated. So I think that there are going to be some things that are always going to stay on the PC, but that area, or in the desktop, but that area is going to become continually narrower. And especially, we've informally, and I suppose if I say this, people are going to start saying, when do we get it in an actual release? But internally, we have done some experiments with Bluetooth keyboards hooked up to Kinemaster with the JKL. If you're familiar with JKL editing, the JKL editing shortcut keys, and it works pretty well. We have a ways to go before we can make that into something we can release in general. But there's no reason why you should be transferring. If you're in the field and you're recording and you have your device to record on, why should you bother transferring it to a PC? If the advantage of the PC is that you have a mouse and a keyboard, why not hook that up to your mobile device and just do the work there if it's capable of it? So I think that's something, and there people think about buying a PC and keeping it for a lot longer. There's a sort of a natural upgrade path with the phones because you have the plan as part of that anyway. So I think for a lot of people, they're going to find out that their mobile hardware is actually more powerful than their PC in some cases. So I think there's going to be a trend. I think if you're doing a big Hollywood blockbuster, of course you're going to be doing that on a PC. But I think there's going to be a lot of video editing, not just video editing, but tasks in general that are going to continuously move to mobile. And you see that with things right now. Facebook or other social media naturally moves more to mobile, of course. But I think that's going to happen with a lot of other things as well. And in Kinemaster, sorry, go ahead.
No, okay, no, go ahead. I was just going to ask you about Kinemaster specifically. So you took the words right out of my mouth.
Yep. So yeah, in Kinemaster specifically, probably I'll get in trouble if I talk about too many specifics, but we're going 2 or 3 years down the line. But I can tell you that one area that we're working on right now actively is essentially a plug-in system, a way to allow third parties to build new effects and features for Kinemaster. So that's something that we're very excited about. And that's going to essentially really open the door to some amazing desktop editor quality features that will be available right on the phone.
That's all very exciting stuff. And I can't help thinking you're so far ahead when it comes to video editing on Android that there's a huge market. I mean, last time I was speaking to Yusuf Omar, who's at the Hindustan Times in India, colossal market, but everybody's on, well, most people are on Android, all sorts of different devices. Those devices, even some of the cheaper ones, are going to get better and better and better and better, and more devices will be able to use what you do. So I can't help thinking that you're really on the cusp of getting even bigger and even more important.
I certainly hope so. I really want to. I think all of us here really hope that Kinemaster turns into something that is really allows people to do. I want to say empowers people to do high quality editing on a very inexpensive mobile device. I think portability is one point, but as you said, low cost. That's something else that I think is very important. And so one of the very exciting things I think with we actually for Kinemaster 3.4 version 3.4, which is actually we've opened in our Kinemaster user community on Google+. That has been opened for beta testers today. And anyone is welcome to join that. But starting with that version, we have added support for video layers on additional devices, and so that's all the Snapdragon 600. I think I mentioned earlier today, Snapdragon 600 earlier in our interview, 615 and higher. So 615, 617, all of those are more affordable processors compared to the 800 series, and we now support video layers on all of those devices, and we're hoping to do that for additional low-cost devices as well. So I think if anyone can, one of the things is if you're in the field, if you're filming, your phone is getting a lot of abuse, and it could be damaged, it could be lost, and whatever. If you can take a very affordable, very inexpensive device where you don't need to worry about that as much, maybe even something that you just get for free with your plan, then. And being able to use Kinemaster, which, compared to desktop editors, is affordable. I think that really empowers people to do a lot more. And if you look at MojoCon, there's a lot of really fantastic equipment available now as accessories for doing mobile video production that are not expensive. Normally you would spend quite a large amount of money to have a mobile broadcasting setup, and there are lapel mics, lavalier mics, for example, now that are affordable and that are designed for directly to plug into a mobile phone. So I think really that there's a lot coming in that area, and it's very exciting.
Just finally on the MojoCon thing, that was your first time there, I believe.
Yes.
What's your impression of seeing people from all different backgrounds, filmmakers, journalists, actually meeting so many of the people who are doing what you're trying to aid them to do? What was your overall feeling that you came away with?
I was absolutely thrilled. Absolutely thrilled. It was really fantastic to meet people who are actually using Kinemaster, or to meet people who didn't know about it or finding out about it for the first time. We had a chance to talk face-to-face with a lot of users that we've never been able to meet before, and some of whom we've been talking to online in advance even of MojoCon. And we were able to get some really fantastic feedback right there. What's good, what's bad, what else do they need, and what are they using it for? It's just really fantastic to hear people are really using it for in the field, because what we get to see is the videos that people post on YouTube, some of which are fantastic videos, but the videos that somebody makes for a TV broadcast, we might see it, but we don't know it was made with Kinemaster. So that was really, really fun to actually get to hear about some of the use cases that are outside of what we get to normally see just by browsing YouTube. Not to belittle YouTube, it's an absolutely fantastic platform, and we have some users doing really amazing work on there. But to be able to see those things that we don't naturally come across, people don't naturally share inside of the community, very exciting.
Okay.
So really good, yeah.
Great. Well, it was good to meet you there too. And if people do want to either get in touch, or I know you've got a Google Plus group, or how many of people have got tech problems? If people want to know more, where should they go?
Okay, so we have, there's several ways to contact us, but the best way by far is the Kinemaster user community. It's exactly called that, the Kinemaster user community on Google Plus. We're actually, it's becoming so popular now that we're looking at possibly switching to an alternative forum for hosting a community. But even if we do, there will always be a notice posted there about where to go. So go there, or you can also find that through kinemaster.com. And there's a link at the bottom of the front page to the user community. The reason why I recommend the user community is because we have a relatively small team here. And we do our best to respond to every email that we get. But if it's in the user community, a lot more people are going to see it. Other people are going to be able to help, and we can respond to more people through that community. So we want to engage as much as we can with our users. It's very important to us, and that community is the best way to do that, and the best way to get feedback.
All right. Well, first of all, congratulations on a fantastic app, and well done for really pushing the Android space, which I think is hugely important, because as we've spoken before, so many people are on Android, and if this is all about giving everybody, empowering them, as you said, to be able to make video, then that's really important. So best of luck with it all, and thank you very much for taking time at the end of your day to have a chat with us.
No problem at all. I'm very happy to talk to you about Kinemaster. Very excited.
If you like this podcast, don't forget to subscribe. And we'd love it if you would leave a review on iTunes or Stitcher. To get in touch with Mark, go to www.purplebridgemedia.com or tweet him at Mark Egan Video.